Why doesn't Father talk about this? Why doesn't Father talk about that? Why can't he say something about marriage or contraception or abortion from the podium during Mass? That is a very frequent question I know that many of you ask with good reason, because you're concerned and you want people to be faithful to the church. And that's a topic we're going to be tackling on the next 2 episodes of The Catholic View for Women. Thanks for joining us. I'm Teresa Tomeo, along with Astrid Bennett Gutierrez and Janet Morana. And we're entitling these episodes Feed My Sheep, featuring a priest that does just that, Father John Riccardo, who is from the Archdiocese of Detroit. And many of you may know him from not only EWTN, he's been on Life on the Rock, but also from his radio program on EWTN, which is produced by Ave Maria Radio, and it's entitled Christ is the Answer. He is a phenomenal preacher and teacher and a pastor at a very large parish in the Archdiocese of Detroit, Our Lady of Good Counsel in Plymouth, Michigan. And the whole idea for the title of these shows actually comes from a series that I continue to do on my radio program called Feed My Sheep. Because after the Supreme Court decision on marriage, I received a lot of emails from our listeners saying, you know, we didn't hear anything about this from the pulpit on the Sunday after, or even Sundays preceding the actual decision. But at the same time, I know personally there are priests like Father Frank Pavone, our pastoral director, or Father John Riccardo, or many others who do preach quite often, not only from the podium, but with blogs and in their articles in church bulletins, and are really trying to do the job of being a faithful teacher and preacher. And so that's what we're going to look at. Father John is actually going to address that question of why a lot of priests don't talk about these issues.
And it's about teaching about these things, not only when something happens, like the Supreme Court ruling. It's about teaching always, encouraging in different ways, and to understand the needs of the people. You know, we are facing these issues. Abortion is in our parishes. People are contracepting, and that it's something that could be in the way it objectively is in the way of the relationship with God. So it's truly feeding their sheep. And how do we do this? How do we truly help our priests to do that?
I know very often, of course, with my work with Father Pavone and Priests for Life, we hear all the time people complaining. We never hear about abortion from the pulpit. And, and it can't be just on Respect Life Sunday, okay, we covered it, check, that's it for the year. And like we're saying, feed my sheep, that you have to be fed all year long. And I'm not saying you're going to preach every Sunday on abortion, although when Father Frank was my parish priest, we used to kid around to say, oh, let's see if Father's going to say the A word this Sunday at Mass. And somehow he would creep it in there somehow. But it wouldn't be the whole homily, would not be about that. He would actually launch off from the readings.
Well, that's they're supposed to do. And speaking as a deacon's wife, that they're supposed to preach on the readings for that day. But Father John Riccardo really was quite honest. We sat down with him at the Courage Conference last year. He was one of the speakers, and we just asked him all kinds of questions, and we just said, Father, you're so well respected, so can you answer this particular question? Why don't priests talk about this, that, or the other thing? Let's see what he has to say.
Why don't priests preach on those things? Probably a couple of reasons. One, because they're afraid. So I don't talk about things sometimes. You just get afraid. You're afraid of what people are going to respond to. Or two, you don't know what you're talking about. So I don't know how to handle the don't know what you're talking about part, but I do know how to handle the you're afraid part, or at least a suggestion for how to handle that, which is obviously pray for the priests, fast for your priests, and write them. Emails, cards are best. I love getting letters from people because letters, I see their handwriting. It takes effort to send a card, but to get a card from someone that says, hey, Father, we're behind you. Even if you're the only person who's behind me, at least I know someone's behind me, and there's not like a blank wall out there. We're behind you. We're praying for you. We know it's hard. We're asking God to give you a shepherd's heart, to give you the courage that you need to, boldly proclaim the gospel in truth and in love and in charity. So just know we're here. We want to hear it, and we got friends who want to hear it too. I mean, things like that. They're simple things. Maybe they're so simple we don't think about them. They go a long way for us. There's 3 of us in my house, and so we try to talk about what we're going to preach on. And hey, have you thought about going there? Ooh, that might be kind of edgy. Don't you think the Lord's kind of saying that to us? Yeah, I think He might. You going to do it? Yeah, I think I am. Great, let's do it. What are you going to? And then we'll work on an outline. I think our lives, just like a lot of families' lives, we get so busy that if we don't have the occasion to get together, at least in the past, a lot of us don't do the things that we probably should. I think given this situation that's happened, we're going to do a lot more being deliberate and intentional about finding ways to get together, calling each other, maybe hear a homily that got played on the air and say, hey, that was a good word. What are you doing this week? Or, hey, just want to say, thanks for boldly stepping up, or thanks for bringing the gospel in the way that you did. Priesthood, the church can't continue the way it's continuing. We have to find a new model for how to do this. It just doesn't work, I don't think. It's too big. I can't take care of 10,000 people. All the surveys show that a pastor, Catholic, Protestant, whatever, can reasonably take care of about 100, 125 people. I have 10,000 people. How can you do that? You can't do that. So we got to find new models for how to do this. And part of the new model, I think, is priests really being in deeper fraternity with each other, making an effort to be deliberate and intentional, again, about supporting each other, pray together, encourage each other, the kinds of things that just seem, again, like no-brainers, but we haven't done much in the past, and now we're reaping the fruit of it.
That is a really interesting, I think, inside look at what priests go through.
That's
in
right.
terms of when they decide what to preach about each week. And I think that idea of having fraternity together is so important.
Yes.
And that's a crisis we have in our churches right now, because Father John Ricardo is very lucky, because he said, in my house, meaning his rectory, he's got a few other priests there with him. But how many priests all over the country are by themselves? I mean, Father Frank and I and our priests, because they travel around parish to parish on the weekend, they see this, a brother priest is, and they so love when our priests come in to visit, because they get to have that time, priest to priest, and talk about what are you preaching, how are you preaching, how do you cover that tough topic, like he said. I love when Father John said, it's kind of edgy. Are we going to go there? Yeah, let's all go there. But he's got a few other colleagues that are all preaching.
Bounce ideas off and
Yeah. But for priests that are all by themselves, imagine he's saying, I love, even if I get just one card. Well, for our viewers out there, if your priest is even in a parish all by himself, maybe with just a deacon, imagine how many cards he would love to get, because he feels he's alone. And maybe it's once in a while when there's a clergy convocation they get together, but those are maybe once or twice a year. They are literally all by themselves.
And he's not saying that the only way they're going to be doing is solid homily, because priests like Father Frank and Father John are phenomenal. They preach in season and out of season and all year long. But they're human.
That's
and
right.
I think sometimes we forget that, and sometimes we're so busy just complaining to them about, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. And now that my husband is a deacon, I'm seeing things from a much different perspective, and getting to know the pastor, Father Darrell and Roman at our parish in the Detroit area, and what he's going through, because he's another one like a Father Frank and a Father John who preaches, consistently in and out of season. Yes. So say thank you, appreciate what they do, and say, hey, Father, we want to hear about this. As Father John said, we really want to hear about, how do we help understand what just happened with this whole marriage thing in our country, which is a whole paradigm shift, which people don't even realize what the fallout of what's going to happen with that Supreme Court decision.
The attitude is so different. Father, help us to understand. Now, Father, you should be doing this.
Help us to understand. We want to hear from you.
And he is our spiritual leader, the spiritual father of that parish. So you go to him and just bring your concerns. And more than anything, to encourage them. I work, in my work in the Vida Initiative is to train Hispanic leaders for the pro-life movement, and particularly in the parishes. So I get people telling me, how do I get my pastor to support my pro-life work? And I say, we have to go to our priest in a spirit of service and respect and obedience. And that's difficult when we feel like we know what they should be doing and that kind of thing. But no, when you go in a spirit of service and share what you're doing, how your work can actually help them in the things that they have. Priests have women coming to them with dilemmas about crisis pregnancies, or their daughter is pregnant, or something that they're.
Well, think about what he said at the end. He said, Our Lady of Good Counsel is a huge parish in the Archdiocese of Detroit. He has about 10,000 people. And I break that down probably, I would think probably about 3,000 to 4,000 families, right? But he has 2 other priests, and I think he has 2 deacons. But even with those 4 men, how do you minister to all those people?
You got to help. Lay people, we don't take the role of the priest. We don't tell him what we suggest. We encourage. We help. We pray.
We help and get involved.
Absolutely. Take some of the load off of what he's got going.
I mean, and some of this can be so simple. After Mass, many of the priests are outside the church shaking hands. It takes 10 seconds just to say, "Thank you, Father. I love that homily. I got a lot out of it. Keep it up." What does that take? And then you could follow it up with a card, but just a word, a positive word when you shake his hand, instead of just saying, "Hi, Father," and move on. Just a quick positive comment to them would probably mean the world. I know it does. And that's a simple thing to do.
Yeah.
And then, like we said, lay people have to learn to step up to the plate a little bit too. I know in my parish, my parish is the cathedral in Metuchen. There's always things in the bulletin where they're looking for people to step up to different things in the parish for service, to help, because the priests can't do it all by themselves. What people don't realize is, I wish the priests were like years ago when I was a kid growing up in Brooklyn, where they just had to worry about the sacramental life of the parish, but that's not true. Years ago, they had a cook hired, someone to clean the parish. I mean, all kinds of things were taken care of for the priests.
Well, staff that were
And
there.
staff. They don't have all that kind of staff. I mean, so maybe we as lay people need to step up more and say, "Father, what do you need to help with around the parish?" Even if it's not in the bulletin, ask. Because I guarantee you'll get a good response, because they're looking for help. They really are.
We can be the Blessed Mother to them.
That's
the priests
right.
need the Blessed Mother in their life, their own personal relationship, but also women that are there to be that loving presence to them, to serve, to help, and to tell them, "Father, we're praying for you. Father, what do you need?" And we're praying for you, Father.
When we did our
It means
marriage
so
cruise
much.
with the Alexanders that we do to enrich marriages, we had a wonderful priest from the Diocese of Green Bay. And at the last day, we had like a panel discussion and allowed for Q&A. And one of the questions was, "Father, what can we do for you?" And this particular priest is all alone in his parish, and it's a growing parish. And he's a wonderful, wonderful priest. And he got very quiet, and he said, "It's really lonely. If you could just really pray for me and support me, in my ministry to preach the truth." I really like it, as Father John said. Father Peter said, "When I get a card or I get an email, it means so much, but we really need your prayers." I can only imagine what it must be like, especially in this day and age. Well, we'll continue our discussion on Feed My Sheep Part 1 when we come back. Another interview, part of the interview with Father John Ricardo, where he talks in a little bit more detail about some of the reasons why some of the priests aren't preaching or feeding their sheep. We'll be right back. Thanks for watching Catholic View for Women. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Catholic View for Women. I'm Teresa Tomeo, along with Astrid Bennett Gutierrez and Janet Morana. We're talking about feeding the sheep from a pastoral perspective, and we're featuring in these episodes, this episode and our next episode, a very, very well-known and much-loved priest from the Archdiocese of Detroit, but who's known throughout the EWTN listening and viewing audience. His name is Father John Ricardo. He is the pastor of Our Lady of Good Counsel Parish in Plymouth, Michigan. He's also the host of a show that's co-produced by Ave Maria Radio and EWTN, Christ is the Answer, and he's a terrific homilist, and we're pretty spoiled to have Father John Ricardo. He's like another Father Frank Pavone, who's our pastoral director. And we were talking, ladies, earlier in the program about the importance of supporting our priests, and many people wonder why some priests don't talk about the hot button issues. We're going to go to the clip of Father John right now, because he's going to get into that in a little bit of detail, some more information behind the scenes of what priests go through when they determine what they're going to preach about. So let's listen to what else Father John Ricardo has to say.
Times we're living in are great times. I think they're great times because of the challenges that we're facing, and as I hear a couple of different bishops often say, they're just operating out of the principle of desperation, which is a really healthy principle at times, because it's like, we don't have any money anymore. And we got to do like really creative things, all that John Paul the Great called for, this new evangelization, new in method, new in art, or new in expression. Part of that is trying to figure out how do we come up with a parish structure that isn't so top heavy that it relies on this one guy. Because if this one guy, I can't get to everybody who needs to talk to me, so that means you could potentially be waiting weeks, to get in to see me. So everybody's experimenting a little bit right now. We hear that word, maybe it raises flags. I don't mean experimenting like we did with the liturgy and stuff. We're experimenting in the sense of trying to, like, what's a better model for parish life? I don't know the answer. I just know that the old model doesn't work. We are too big, most parishes. No doctor's practice has 10,000 clients. I mean, nobody would work that way. I'm not sure what the solutions are. The the solutions are to get on our knees, ask the Lord, and to be really confident that He's not abandoned us right now, and He's got some creative ways to do some things. And I think it's involving priests and lay folks in a much tighter fashion right now, which is very encouraging. You know, some of the walls that were there, some of the clericalism from both sides, I think is kind of diminished right now, which is very good. In the past, the priest was the most educated oftentimes in the parish. Well, that ain't the case anymore, I'm talking to people with tons of levels of education and doctorates and professional careers with topics that I don't even understand what they do. So some of that whole demographic in parish life has changed greatly. And it makes me rely on people for things that in the past maybe Father didn't need to rely on them for. I just think it's exciting, and we're going to need lay people to come forward and say, hey, can we try maybe doing this way? And you go, yeah, I think we might be able to do that. And so there's a deeper cooperation right now, and hopefully we're all just, sincerely seeking the Lord, trying to figure out what are you asking the church in this particular time in this country to respond to this urgent crisis of people who don't know you, Lord. You can keep trying to call us irrelevant all you want. I know what you want. You want what I want. And so every human, this is the advantage of doing evangelization, right? Every single human person longs for God, even if they don't know it. And we know that. And we just have to be creative in trying to offer it. But, the Samaritan woman at the well, to me, is like something like the best image for the modern age that we're living in. Here's this woman who comes to the well. She goes at noon. Why? Because there's nobody going to be there. Because I don't want to get ostracized. And we got a lot of people in this culture right now. This is a crisis of friendship. So they're all living this alienated lifestyle despite all the connections that they have on their Facebook page. And they're thirsty as all get out. And so she comes to the well, she meets Jesus, they have the encounter that they have, and then the story ends with her leaving her bucket at the well. And to the surprise and shock and dismay of so many people, it's like when they hear the gospel for what it really is, they leave their water jar. Because it's like someone tapped them on the shoulder and they went, what you really want is Him. And they go, yeah. Oh. Yeah, I do. Because they meet Him, and in meeting Jesus, everything changes, again, to their dismay. But so at one and the same time, they're clamoring for the church's approval, saying we have nothing to offer, and then they actually get offered what we have to offer, which is not rules and regulations, but an encounter with a person that can change your life. And they're just mystified as to how this happened. It's like I just got brainwashed or something. But you didn't. You just met the eternal Son of God who alone can satisfy your heart.
One of the questions we asked Father John in their interview was, why is it that we see so much in the world, right, with whether it's so-called same-sex marriage or the push for contraception and abortion, where people constantly are trying to get the church's approval.
Right.
Why is it that they want the church's approval? And at the same time, they call us irrelevant, outdated, old-fashioned. And what he was explaining there was the fact that deep down they know that they want Christ. Mm-hmm. And in terms of feeding the sheep, I love what he said about it's a co-responsibility.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And I think we forget that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, he also, too, spoke about people really are longing for that relationship with Jesus, even if they don't know it. It's something deep inside of us. And the reason why I think sometimes we go down the wrong way and embrace the culture and all that is because that seems easy and fun. But there's a longing inside of us for the authentic, for the real Jesus that we want. And so when you begin to hear the truth, or begin to open your heart just a little bit, like happened to all of us, because we were away from the church, but that little crack in the dam for us, it was like, oh my gosh. And then you want more, and you want more. I mean, I can remember when I first came back to the church, I couldn't get involved in enough stuff. I mean, I went to the Bible class. It was like I was hungry for what I had missed. Mm-hmm. And I think that what Father John is saying, like, this is an exciting time because, so many of the people in the parish are, like he said, it used to be years ago, the priest was the only one with a college degree. But now everyone has college at masses and beyond, and everyone's pretty intelligent and gets it. And so now they when you introduce just a little bit to people, they are hungry to be fed.
Absolutely.
They do want to unpack the scriptures. They do want more knowledge.
And if your parish priest, for whatever reason, doesn't want to preach on the tough issues, he's kind of soft on them, we have so many sources like EWTN
That's right.
to be taught, to be fed. We can listen to Father Ricardo. We have apps now, where even if he's in Michigan or where, we
his
can
podcasts
still,
are huge,
we can
very
hear him.
popular, yeah.
So now, like for example, in LA, we just got a year ago Catholic radio on the dial. So everybody's excited about this new, this new development, and we're realizing, we're being fed. We don't have to just wait on our parish priest. Of course, encourage him, pray for him, and hope for the best. But now we have people that are spreading the news about the EWTN, about the other Catholic radio stations in the parish. So now lay people are saying we can be missionaries, we can spread the truth, not only from the pulpit, but also with all the resources.
And we don't only get fed, and that's a great point, because we don't only get fed from the pulpit.
That's
right.
right.
Obviously we get fed from the Eucharist, and we need the priest to give us Eucharist, and
Yes.
the Eucharist is the source and summit of our faith. But sometimes I think we limit it to, well, people are falling away from faith because Father isn't preaching. That has been part of the problem, yes, definitely, and we've addressed this numerous times on this show and my radio show. But it's a much bigger picture, as Father John Ricardo mentioned, in terms of, this is a large parish, there are different needs, there are different issues. You've got the, distributing of the administering of the sacraments, but then you have, as you mentioned, the Bible studies and the other programs. So it's not just, not to diminish Mass, of course, but sometimes we just put that in a box and say, well, if we're going to Mass, then that's all we need to do.
Well, some people, they go to Sunday Mass, and that's it till next Sunday. And the thing is, like, okay, but what are you bringing into your home, like Astrid is saying? Like, for example, National Catholic Register, do you have a subscription to that? And other good Catholic magazines and newspapers that come into your home, so you're aware of what's going on for the Church Universal. Open up your eyes and ears a little bit. And of course, EWTN, have you ever DVR'd the Holy Father's audience that they get up in the middle of the night here in Birmingham to bring to us? I mean, and then all the other great programming. Maybe you need to change your channels and DVR some better things than the things you're currently watching. And you come home and you get glued into all these other series kind of programs when you could be feeding yourself of stuff. I mean, there are Bible studies on EWTN. There's all kinds of devotions. And you can't even, maybe because of your work schedule, you can't get to do a holy hour. You can't get to see the rosary. I mean, I sometimes put it on when I'm cooking or something, and getting meals and cooking and doing stuff. I put EWTN so I can listen to it. And it's a more wholesome thing to be listening to than some other secular junk.
And it's limited. I have a friend who was actually brought back to the church from reading somebody's Facebook posts. She saw a faithful Catholic posting about their love for the Eucharist, about even pro-life issues, and she became intrigued. And she said, you know what, I never liked your posts. She told the friend, I never liked your posts, I never commented, but I was watching, I was listening, and then she became an on-fire Catholic.
Wow.
So you never know, the new evangelization is limitless.
Well, again, and remember that Feed My Sheep is for all of us, not just for our pastors and our deacons. We're all responsible to witness, and by the virtue of our baptism, we're all called to evangelize. So let's help our priests, let's encourage them, let's pray for them, as Father John said, and then we'll be talking more with Father John in our next episode, part 2 of Feed My Sheep. But let's take a look at some of the resources that we have in terms of homework.
Well, first of all, I just want to point out, like Mother Angelica always said, if you keep the holy reminders around your home, that does help. And this is beautiful holy reminder. She's our patroness for the program. It's the Kitchen Madonna, available at the EWTN Religious Catalog. And of course, as Astrid always likes to point out, symbols, the broom here to keep the home clean, but also cleanliness of purity of mind and thoughts and deeds. Keys here, which is safety for the home, but also the keys she's going to lead us to the kingdom, the keys to the kingdom, and of course the kettle to nourish us in body and soul. Beautiful bronze statue, and of course, if it's in your kitchen, it will help keep the conversation on Jesus
and also,
His Blessed Mother.
We have 2 links to Father John's parish, olgcparish.net.
This is the homework now.
Right.
Okay, so the first one is, of course, is to visit his parish, the website, which is olgcparish.net, and also his podcasts, which are on Ave Maria radio.net.
They're also on his parish website too,
Right.
so they can get it there
So
as well.
both places. I mean, what a great thing to have that podcast download onto your little phone device, and you could be listening. You could be listening to that when you go into the gym in the morning. It would be great. And of course, the second thing is give a word of encouragement to your priest regarding something he can preach about or did that was encouraging to you or others. And of
I
course,
brought my spiritual director, Monsignor Bulgarian, a big chocolate turkey for Thanksgiving one time, and I was going in for spiritual direction. He was at a busy day. He said, "Oh, thank you so much." He loved it. Anyway, go
okay,
ahead.
and then number 3, of course, is to visit our Priest for Life website. priestforlife.org/clergy is the actual page. We have a wealth of information up there, and you can point out to your priest. He can sign up for our clergy email, because Father Pavone puts together an email for priests a couple of weeks ahead of the readings, so that they can get some talking points on life issues, and also too we give them bulletin inserts, prayers of the faithful, and wealth of information. Great.
And pass that on to your priest, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
all right. So some great resources, and you can find all the links that Janet just mentioned on, of course, our website at thecatholicviewforwomen.com under our homework section. We do hope that you'll tune in for our next episode of the season, actually our wrap-up episode, which is going to be Feed My Sheep Part 2. We'll have more with Father John Ricardo from Archdiocese of Detroit and EWTN Catholic Radio. For Janet Morana, Astrid Bennett Gutierrez, and yours truly, Teresa Tomeo, as well as Father Frank Pavone, our pastoral director, thanks for watching The Catholic View, and we'll see you next time. Stay tuned.